Hello and welcome to a Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. This will be a probably one-part series. I'm just going to do a mission to the moon, and I attempted doing a tutorial, but I'm really not very good at teaching what I know. So I'm just going to basically go through the motions of getting to the moon, and hopefully you can pick up some uh, tips for yourself, and I'll try and explain to the best of my ability. But first, I'll go through the staging of my rocket. With each rocket I make, I have 3 stages. Um, well, there's more actual stages, but they're basically I have 3 parts, 3 sections. The first is the launch stage. This will get me off the ground and into basically just really high up into the sky. It won't even get me into orbit. It's just going to lift my whole rocket up. My second section is going to get me into orbit and get my orbit pointed towards the moon, and in fact even give me a few retro burns when I get to the moon so that I can slow my descent enough to start moving on to my next section, which will be the moon lander. And this has gone through a few revisions, a lot of killed kerbals, a lot of crashed rockets to get to this part. But this is a really stable rocket, and my personal favorite. I pretty much do it for everything, and in fact, it is Minmus class rocket. I have actually gotten to Minmus and landed and gotten home safely with this rocket. So for the moon, it's a bit overkill, but no, well, it just means a lot less, messing around. So uh, here we go. I'm really hoping this game doesn't crash my drivers. It has the last couple of times, and nope. I've basically turned all of the graphics down and everything down to as low as I possibly can um, to ensure the highest percentile chance that this will not crash my drivers. And you can see we've got our 3 star heroes, Bill, Bob, and Jebediah. And that doesn't mean I haven't killed them yet. It means that I basically cycled through enough kerbals that it went back to Bill, Bob, and Jebediah. So enough chit-chat. Launch. As you can see, I basically don't have my hands on the controls. The rocket flies perfectly straight. Yeah. So, around 40,000 feet, these sort of cluster rockets around the side of my rocket will run out of fuel, but that center rocket, that one's basically for control, but around 40,000 feet, that'll be all I have left. I'll have 1 fuel tank per jet left, so 3 fuel tanks if you want to. I like to say 1, but since there are 3 jets, it's really 3. And basically that's when I'll start tilting the whole rocket on a 90-degree angle and use up the rest of that fuel, and then work on my second part, which is the orbital rocket. So it's going to take a while. I think I'll basically pause the video and come back to around 35,000 feet. See you then. We're back to 35. Oh, losing control. This sometimes happens. I don't know why. It's kind of glitchy. But anyway, we're out of fuel. It doesn't matter. I'm going to kill my jets. I'll turn off our... Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Don't worry. Oh, no need to panic. Alright. RCS. Work with me, RCS. Work with me. Work with me. Alright. This is good. Wasting a bit of fuel on my RCS, but that's okay. Get it pointed straight. SAS on. Full throttle. Turn off SAS. Or sorry, RCS. And it's a bit wobbly at this part, but no worries. I could make actions to try and fix that, but it's alright. So, at this stage in the game, if you haven't, my orbit's a little crooked, but it should straighten itself out. At this stage in the game, basically, the best way to make an efficient orbit is to just burn your fuel on a horizontal fashion as close to the apoapsis as you can, but making sure that you stay on this side of the apoapsis so that basically you don't have to waste fuel getting yourself back up to the height that you want. Should actually be a little bit higher. 120,000 is about where I want to be. That's just so that I can get to the next speed on the time warp. And I'm just, this isn't, again, the first section is not going to get me into orbit, but I like to use up that fuel just because I have it, may as well. And that should be out just about. You can see it's almost gone. There we go. Now our second stage, second section rocket is a go, and we can see we're pretty close to our apoapsis. And that's actually pretty dangerous. Well, it's not dangerous, but I'm going to try and correct it a little bit, just because I really don't want to descend anymore. I'm literally exactly above 120. So I'm just going to tilt my rocket up just a little bit, make sure I stay on this side of the apoapsis. You can see our orbit starting to form. Yeah, that's alright. So our apoapsis is leaving us. Just a note, it took me a while to notice this, but you can see the little T minus something, 10 seconds. If that's increasing, that means, you're extending, you're increasing the apoapsis away from yourself. I mean, that's a really awkward way of saying it, but hopefully you'll know what I mean. Alright, so actually kind of wasting fuel at this point. I'm going to move back into my horizontal way at 90-degree angle from the Earth. And I'm going to pop this up. Oh, turn off my RCS. How much did I waste? All of it. Oh, that's good. I always do that, at least once. Alright, so that's pretty good. If you got both your periapsis and apoapsis sort of in a, on a sort of 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and you're at 6 o'clock, that means you've made a pretty good circular orbit. It's pretty awesome. And at this point, you can do this better, but this is, for me, this is just how I like to do it. Get into orbit, and then use time warp to try and plan your next stage, which is obviously trying to make a trajectory towards the moon. So I think I'll pause it here again, and well, actually, this is probably important for some people who don't know how to do this. What I want to do is, if you see, I line up the moon and the Earth, I want to be on the orbit facing away from the moon. And you'll see why, because basically what we're going to do is we're going to, in our horizontal way, in our 90-degree angle, we're going to let loose our jets. We're going to full throttle and basically increase our speed and slingshot ourselves around the moon around the Earth and towards the moon. Basically, we're going to extend our orbit. So that's what we're going to do. So now that we know, I'm going to pause it and see if I can't get into a good position. And I should know, you don't want to line these up perfectly. You want to line it up so that the moon is about, if we were looking at a clock, about 2 hours away. We're aiming for 12 o'clock, and the moon is at 2 o'clock. It's the way I like to look at things. Anyway, see you soon. Okay, we're back, and I'm going to try not to waste RCS fuel, but I think it just means it's going to take a lot longer than it should, but I really need that RCS fuel for landing on the moon. If I was going to improve this model of the rocket, I I would maybe put on some more RCS fuel, just because I find I run out too easily and start wasting my shuttle fuel. Alright, making sure this green indicator, for people who don't know, that is the direction where our rocket is moving in. It has nothing to do with what direction our rocket is pointed in, but just the sort of the direction that the rocket is hurtling through space. So I want to line up our rocket using the orange indicator so that we are pointed in the direction that we're traveling in. And then let's double check. We're a little bit off, but it should be alright. And turn our thrusters on. In this part you should be careful, because this is going to start really slowly and then it's going to speed up really very quickly, like almost suddenly. So you want to make sure you keep a very sharp eye and catch it, because you don't want to shoot past the moon. That's pretty disastrous, because then you have to waste fuel trying to recorrect your orbit. So once it's around halfway towards the moon's orbit, I like to start throttling down. And basically we want it to increase slowly. There, that's what we want. Alright. Can even increase it a little bit more if we want. Some people are going to wonder what's going on. These are really weird orbit signals that, and I agree. In fact, this is the first time I'm using them, but they're pretty cool. They make for some accurate orbit, UI. If you want to find out how I did this, how I changed this setting so I get these cool looking orbit, there's a guy, I think he's called Try Dying to Live, I think his YouTube channel is. He's a very good Let's Player of Kerbal Space Program, very enthusiastic, and I enjoy him very much. I enjoy his Let's Plays. So, and he has a thing called hidden settings. I'll probably put the URL in the description, and he'll teach you how to change the settings. It's pretty straightforward, but I'm not going to go into it right now. So I'm going to stop the video again and start it right around here. So see you then, and I'll show you the next stage of our lunar flight. Okay, welcome back. Being careful not to hit these super zooms, or warps, sorry, so as not to miss our window here. And what I'm going to do, actually, as soon as we're sort of halfway towards this orange line, just so people, for the sake of covering all my bases, this represents the orbit around the moon. Well, now it's blue. This is now our orbit. We're in our orbit around the moon. Again, this is the first time I've used this setting. I'm not used to it. I think it's really cool, but yeah, I'm not used to it. So this represents our periapsis around the moon. Basically, the closest we're going to get to the moon, and our fastest, the fastest our velocity is going to be. So it's kind of a dumb idea to try and turn our, form our orbit around the moon at that point, just because the way we're going to do it, I'm getting ahead of myself. The way we're going to form our orbit around the moon is to do a retro burn. Basically, that's the incorrect nomenclature for the buffs out there, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to burn our rockets in the opposite direction of where we're moving towards. We're going to burn away from where we're headed to. Again, poor choice of words, but you'll have to bear with me here. So this little indicator, the green one with the X in it, that represents the opposite direction of the one that our rocket is moving towards. And I want to be pointed, get our marker on that, so I know that our rocket is pointed in the opposite direction. And around our periapsis, I'm going to burn and basically start forming our orbit around the moon. And again, it's It's a bit of a waste of fuel because since that is the point in which we are moving the fastest, that means we have to use the most fuel to slow ourselves down. But it makes for the coolest looking orbits, and you know, it's important to look cool while doing this, or else you're just gonna feel like you're wasting your time. So I'm gonna speed this up a little bit more. That's a comfortable speed. I've learned from all too many times pressing those last two warp speeds can really just end your mission prematurely. Uh, so, you know, I think around here is actually pretty good. I'm going to go for the less awesome looking orbit and just go for a practical orbit. And line us up. It's my OCD in action. Increase our thrusters. You can see that orbit forming. There's our orbit. Yeah, see? Doesn't look as cool as it could. And it's just, you know, all forms of disappointment. Let's check our fuel just for the sake of looking awesome. Yeah, why are we checking my fuel to be awesome? I don't know. We have a full tank. One full tank. That's actually four full tanks because we have 4 rockets. But it's a full tank. That's going to be more than enough to slow our descent and turn our orbit into a descent and then slow our descent. And we're gonna actually waste some fuel. This is a pretty good launch, if I say so myself. So right now I'm going to increase my speed just a little bit. And what I'm doing here is just making sure that my rocket is where I want it to be so that I descend on the side of the moon that is facing the sun. Um, I I don't know if there are people out there who can land on the dark side of the moon. Power to you, but I can't. I need light. I have tried, and it's just it taught me how to do things the right way. That's what it taught me. So I'm gonna actually live dangerously, hit that second to last warp, and that's pretty good, right about there. Yep. I mean, it's a large, you know, it doesn't matter, but anyway, getting close to our periapsis, so we're actually wasting fuel here. If I was really smart, I would basically wait for the moon to orbit around the Earth a bit so that the bright side moved around to my apoapsis. That would be the most efficient way, but it really doesn't matter considering how much fuel we have. We have quite a bit of fuel, so we have quite a bit of leeway for making mistakes. All right, again, pointing on the opposite direction of our trajectory of our in the direction that our rocket is moving in, so that I can burn and decrease our orbit and start turning it into a descent. If you do this right, you don't even need RCS. This is where all the flight training pays off. I've actually landed on the moon without RCS. It's harder and unnecessary, but you can do it if you do this part right, because if you are pointed directly, or if you're moving directly down, then that's really the part you care about, because that's what the RCS is really for, is just to make sure you remove any kind of horizontal, uh, you know, speed so that you can land true on the ground. Just making sure this is good. I might as well do it right. That way you can see how to do it right. All right, that's pretty much perfect. It's those two lines are about as close to each other as they're gonna get. then that means you've done things right. So I'm going to point our rocket straight up away from the moon. And the only reason that X isn't straight on the dot is because we're still at the very tippy top of our apoapsis. It'll start to correct itself. I'm going to check our height. We are actually quite far away from the moon. I'm going to increase it a bit. You can see we're pretty much bang on. Increase it a little bit, living dangerously. This is the part where I've literally ended my runs. I'm like, whoops, 1,000 or 10,000 x warp speed, and then you just go, poof, hit the moon. You don't even get the satisfaction of seeing the crash. You just, mission end. That's not fun. So I'm going to basically descend until about 100,000 or maybe 50,000, and then do a retro burn just to make sure we're not going at crazy speeds. Whoops. We're all right. 10 times. So our speed is actually pretty nutso here. So I'm going to start thinking about a retro burn. Right around here looks good. I'll bring it down to about 200. Actually, I think 300 is perfect. I'll bring it down to 200. I may as well be careful. I want to make sure I do this right because I don't want to have to do this video a second time. The fact that my drivers haven't crashed yet is actually a really good sign. So back to 50x. Go down to about 35,000. Do another retro burn. Again, that's not the correct nomenclature, but I think it's a good word for what I'm doing. Retro burn, someone told me the other day, is basically when you have rockets on the other side of your rocket and you launch those. So basically, you slow your descent in that way. You slow your speed down, but it doesn't really work that way in this game. So let's keep slowing our descent. It's pretty good. How's our fuel? We got lots of fuel. We can pretty much just waste it if we wanted. Some people, not everyone, might be wondering what these yellow tubes are. I mean, you can always hover over the description of the item in the editor to find out what they are, but just for the sake, again, of covering my bases, these are fuel ducts, and they basically relay fuel from one tank to another. And right now I'm using them for my RCS to make sure that basically that all the RCS use fuel from these tanks first and don't waste fuel from my lunar lander, which is basically where I need it most. So around 10,000, I'm going to start retro burning again. Just bring it down to 200,000. Might go a bit lower. In fact, I'm going to bring it down to about 100,000. So here's a tip. Some people will know it. Anyone who hasn't landed on the moon yet, this tip will save your butt. It will. Around 2,000 meters, you're gonna want to start eyeballing how far away your ship is from the ground. The reason that is because this ticker is no longer accurate when it comes to the moon. It's gonna get to about 2,000, and then basically you could just crash into the moon. That's because there are not castles, mountains, and all kinds of tall terrain that this counter doesn't account for. Let's see if I can say count enough times in this video. Yeah, so it's just it doesn't account for the like high ridges and high mountains and stuff. So you're not going to want to go by that anymore. And you can see, if you can tell, I'm already, oops, now I'm moving away from the moon. I'm already pretty close to the ground. Once you start seeing those lines, that's the actual ground terrain. That means I have to start thinking about landing. I'm actually almost out of fuel, so we were good with our fuel. Gonna use up the rest of it. Next stage. This part always makes me nervous because I'm never sure how many stages I have. I'm going to turn on my RCS. I'm going to use my RCS to remove my horizontal. And this is good. The reason I keep that second section is because it tells me exactly how far away from the moon I am, which can be very helpful. Get out my landing gear. Want to using my RCS, try and remove all horizontal speed. Whoops! Ooh! Oh man, stop bouncing. That was dangerous. Our landing gear almost buckled. Gonna turn off the RCS and turn off the SAS. Landing gear almost buckled, but that was pretty good. I've had better, but you know what? There is no better than alive. So, or stranded. That's worse in my opinion. So, we're on the moon. How about that? And as a brief victory lap, I always like to do not spin my camera around it. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's hard to find. Go to max warp. I'm looking for a specific thing. There it is. This sort of Milky Way-esque graphic, which is I know I look for that because I know that that's where the sun's going to be when it ends, basically. Yeah, that's cool. So, if everything has gone well, then you should have more than enough fuel to get home. So let's just work on the next stage, which is getting home. So I'm gonna go up to about 5,000 meters. Turn my rocket ever so it's pointed up. You don't have to be nearly as, this is something that took me a lot longer than it should have. You don't need to be nearly as far away from the moon before you can start moving, pointing horizontally. In fact, I could start now if I wanted. I'm gonna go to about 4,000. Turn off my RCS. I'm not gonna waste that RCS because I have had missions where the RCS has saved my life. So I'm hoping I'm not gonna show you that. Um, all right, that's pretty good. I'll 2x. No, let's do a 3x until we get to this our apoapsis, and then start burning again. We'll burn around there. Alright, that's pretty good. Start burning. Form our orbit. This is going to happen a lot faster than on Earth. And for the sake of saving fuel, I'm going to get back to my apoapsis. Burn a bit more. Just double checking. This is one thing I don't know. I don't know what these purple markers mean, indicators. I have no idea what they mean. I'd like to know at some point, but I really just have no idea. Alright, there we go. That's a pretty good orbit. Let's check our fuel. Oh man, see, this is the part that scares me. We should actually be pretty good, but that's a lot less fuel than I'd like to have. So let's just see what happens. Gonna line ourselves up so that we're facing away from the Earth, and then start forming our trajectory home. Where are we? Alright, we're good. Alright. Almost there. Almost. There. Alright. That's pretty good. Again, don't want to... No point in wasting your RCS, because now your ship is lightweight enough that you can redirect it pretty easily. Alright. Really nervous that I'm not going to have enough fuel. Oh, we're about to run out. That's going to do it for our fuel. Now this is, I didn't really want to show example this, but this is why I try not to waste my RCS fuel, because sometimes it can save you. Now I wish it would tell you the velocity you're going to be traveling in. Anyway, turn on the RCS, and I'm going to press H, which is going to thrust me forward. This may not turn out that great, honestly. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait till I get to my apoapsis of my Earth orbit and then try and slow my descent. This is a dangerous way of doing it because it could be that I have to use a lot of fuel, but I'm hoping I'll be moving slowly enough on the apoapsis that it won't matter. Alright. I'm going to go to our 10,000. Go down up to about 50x. Go to about 1000x. Get to our apoapsis. And then start retro burning. moving, but it's moving very slowly. I don't think I'm going to make it. Jeez. I'm not sure where I went wrong here. I probably should have started my moon orbit a little bit sooner, probably around 2,000 or 3,000 meters away from the moon. That's it for our RCS. That's it. Well, so unfortunately I didn't get to show you a successful mission to the moon and back, but maybe you have learned. Well, what's going on here? No, no, no. What's happening? What is this? Oh no, this is gonna form an even larger orbit. Oh, that's no good. Oh my god.